is the word? Amateur video recording at work because I had no choice. I use my phone, I use a tripod, and I have a little bit of these, kits that you buy on Amazon.
Yeah, they're not bad, those
No.
kits. But the pro stuff,
yeah.
when it works great. But when
It works for Facebook.
It's perfect for Facebook. My wife has a setup for that too. She's got a big microphone hooked into your phone on a tripod thing.
You get these little ones you put in the middle there, and.
Oh yeah, but we are set to go. Everything's
okay. Well, this is my list of questions.
I don't believe you.
No, it is. That's my list.
Yes.
But I kind of know how we're going to move through this, and what we want to do is talk about the
there we go.
Talk about the arc of your immigration story from the beginning to where you grew up until where we are right now, and we want to touch on some issues. You said that was my first experience of racism. If you don't mind, we'll talk a little bit about things like that. But if there's something that I ask and that you don't want to talk about, that's okay. Really, it's just a conversation, and probably about an hour and a half, maybe a little less. Pat may ask you a question, and if he does, it's usually like it's usually right on point. But answer is if I had asked it.
Yeah.
Oh, I keep looking at you.
Yeah. And if you look at me while I'm asking the question, that's fine. But when you answer,
Well, let me just look up like I'm thinking about it. But, think about it.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
And so it's really just a conversation about you and your story. And I will tell you that this interview, I don't really like that term interview, but this conversation is going to be part of something that I think is going to be really transformative. It's been powerful, it's been enlightening, it's been fun, and I think that when the people of Virginia hear what we're talking about, it's going to make a big difference. I'm hoping.
Yes.
And I hope we get to continue it beyond the scope of this first grant. We're going to do 30 interviews, and then we have to stop in phase 1. But I'm going to try to raise the money to keep going because I think it's so important. And we've talked to State Delegate, Secretary of Education. We've also talked to people who are working in the poultry industry on the Eastern Shore. So it's a wide range.
It's a tapestry it's a tapestry of stories in a way.
And no two are alike at all. But there are some common themes, and we can another time we can talk about what those are. But I just want you to know how much we appreciate you doing it. It does take a chunk out of your day.
It's not about that,
Okay. All right. So you want me not to reach across the camera for my water, so
that is precisely it. But if it happens, it happens. We're just gonna keep rolling with it. I'm currently still trying to find the exact right camera angle, just because I want to make sure it's perfect. So, this is good.
And then when it's all over, we'll take a couple of still photographs, if that's okay. Portrait photographs. We're gonna make you so famous.
Lovely.
So famous.
I don't want it.
Well, you're part of the tapestry.
That's why I like radio.
I get it. The visuals are tough, but you're doing great. You look wonderful. The light is very nice here. We're big soft light. The window light is perfect. So
that's when people see me and they like, okay, the customers, they come to the office and they. As they start talking to me and I help them out or whatever, just like, are you the lady from the radio? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But they don't see me, so that I'm good with that.
Yeah. So I don't know that part of your story, but maybe we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. First thing is just tell us your name and where are we sitting right now? Where are we?
Karla Almendarez Ramos, which I'm from Honduras. I've been here in this country. I left December 20th, 1996, Honduras. That's when I left. So, and we are here in my house in Chester, Virginia.
When you were growing up in Honduras, what was it like? Paint a picture of what life was like. Was it a small town, big city, your family? What was it like?
It was both. My family is from a very small town in the southeast of Honduras and grew up. My mom is the oldest of 12 children, so I was the oldest granddaughter, and I lived with my grandmother for a few years until I went to elementary school. So I was the spoiled granddaughter, and then we had two other cousins, that we grew up very closely. We were a year apart, so the three of us were always with my grandma, and that's what I remember. That's where I learned to love cooking, her cooking, my grandma's cooking. That's where I learned to love the food. And she will give me special treats on the side that nobody will see. And that's how I grew up. My mom used to come over the weekend and visit because she was working in the capital. But most of the time it was just with my grandma and the other uncles and my grandfather. But it was a very big family, as you can imagine, 12 kids and then cousins and uncles and all that.
What was the name of the place?
Danlí, El Paraíso. Danlí, the paradise. That's where the department or the state area is. It's very well known for coffee growers and tobacco. Like cigars. My grandfather used to have his own plants, tobacco plants, and he will roll his own cigars. I remember he had a farm. I remember seeing him. He was very quiet, in just methodically drying his leaves in the clothesline, and then when they were ready, he would roll them, cut them, and of course, smoke. We all hated the smoke. We could smell it from far away when Abuelito, was smoking. But my grandma used to just get angry and say, "Go smoke somewhere else." And he was like, "Oh, just leave me alone." And he would just sit with his cigar, his cup of coffee, and a newspaper. And read.
So what was the community like? Were there festivals and did people get together? Was the church important? Talk about that.
Yes, church was important. Not just church, but religion itself. We're Catholic, raised Catholic. Not only will go to church on Sundays, everybody, but we will pray the rosary, I don't know how many times in the week, and all the children were forced to sit with the older ladies, my grandma, her cousins, and we will pray the rosary. And it was a school night, it doesn't matter, we will pray, and we will all be there.
Would you describe the life as being a happy life?
Yes, we were just innocent kids having fun. We will go out, and as long as we came home when it was not dark, we were gay. There was no restrictions. I remember there was a big, what is the name of them? The side where the rain goes on the side of the road.
Gutter?
The gutter, yes. It was a big gutter next to the house. When it was raining, it was a party. We will make boats of paper, newspaper boats, and all the kids will go out on the storm. It wasn't lightning or thundering. It was just rain, heavy rain, and it will be a river. And we will go and have races with the paper boats, and there were newspapers. So, and that was a blast. We will play hide and seek in the evenings with all the neighbors, all the kids in the neighborhood. We grew up outside, having ices, just being in each other's houses. All the parents, knew each other. They knew where we were. If we were not at home, they knew there were only a couple of options where we could be. And the neighbors raised each other's kids in a way.
Was there any political unrest at that time? Was it stable?
Not that I remember in that time. It was later when you start getting some conscious about political issues. But during that early childhood, I wasn't. I was oblivious. It was an innocence, of being a child.
How about school?
School. I started school in the town with my grandma. And then I had, I think, an unique opportunity because my mom was working at that time. Well, she always worked at the Department of Education. She was a secretary I don't even know the name of the department that she worked. But that was an area that they work with international missions. So one year, the Japanese International Mission came to Honduras and decided to open a music school. And they were gathering children and auditioning and start from zero, these kids, and give them an education and incorporate music as a pillar of the education. So my mom, I remember she always tells the story that the teachers, it was teachers that came. They asked her, Miss Carmen, don't you have a child? Why you don't bring her and, do an audition? And she always tells that my daughter cannot even sing the A. And I think they were so persistent that she brought me to an audition. I remember it was like a game, I was like 7 years old. And they put you to do this rhythm with some of the little instruments and sing whatever note they sang. And that was it. And I ended up being selected. So that's when I moved. The school was in the capital, so I moved to the capital, but I went to live with one of my aunts. My mom was still not able to have me with her. So for 2 or 3 years, I lived with my aunt while I went to school. And I started going to the music school. It was an experiment, okay? We were the first class that were going to graduate. We started a very long time ago, 1982. 1982, yes. No, that was my graduation. It was 1992. No, 78. I don't know, you just can't cut that. But they were teachers from Japan. They had some other teachers from, I remember, Chile, and local teachers. And there was a teacher from Germany. She was kind of the director of the music part. So the whole morning was music. From the beginning till like noon, then we had lunch. And then from 1 to 3, I'm gonna have to get her out of here. we were going to normal classes. Can we pause?
Yeah.
She's being annoying.
That's it.
What do you want? Huh? Let me get you upstairs. Come on. Your nails being annoying. Come on. Coco is running. Esta Coco está haciendo ruido. Coco, go with Anna. Go, go. Go. Go upstairs. Good girl. Go. Her nails.
It's all good.
Yeah, so we were talking about the German instructor and
Yes.
names and,
Her name was Anne Deja Neuba. That's her name. And I actually, she was a pianist. Okay. So I was the most timid little girl you could ever imagine. I was very shy. I was always, I was picked on because I was very skinny and tall. And that's not a trait of a Latin American, country. And I was picked on. So I was very shy, but I found I loved going to school. And then I loved music. So music became my way to excel in some way. I wasn't really conscious about it, but it was just my whole world. The teacher, Miss Anne, she kind of adopted me. She started teaching me private lessons, piano private lessons. She saw that I had talent, and so that's, it wasn't conscious, it wasn't on purpose. Nobody planned it, not even my mom. One day she just asked my mom, can I bring her to my house and teach her? And my mom was like, well, I don't have money to pay you. And she was like, doesn't matter. So I will go to her house once a week. And that's how I learned to play piano. Throughout the school, we had the opportunity to do everything in music. We learn every year. We learn a new instrument. So I did play violin, cello. We had a chorus with all the children, and we played percussion, xylophone, so all kinds of instruments. But by like third grade, I did like cello a lot. But it was very difficult carrying a cello in the public bus. Being a little girl, and because I was tall, my cello was the biggest. So I had to carry it. I used public transportation. I was riding the bus by myself. So I was carrying the cello. People would make fun of me because they had no clue what it was. But I did carry it when I had to. But then one day she told me, you had to pick what instrument, because the cello will hurt my fingertips, and that I couldn't play piano very well. So I chose piano. And that's how I, stay with her, continue on. It's amazing looking back, because when I was 11, 12 years old, I was playing with a symphonic orchestra, and we gave concerts in the National Theater. I was the soloist. I was the little girl, and I was so unaware of the impact of that, or of that. In some way, it was too easy for me, because it was not hard for me to play or to remember the pieces and practice. So when we finished elementary school, there was a school that was like kind of a secondary, like a continuing, but it wasn't part of the same program. So in some way, I went to a technical school, secondary, and I kind of got separated, off track of music. I think as a teen, you start exploring, then you have peer pressure. It's not cool, or there are other things that attract you more. Like I said, being tall and skinny. When I was 15, people started, why don't you become a model? So, okay, a 15-year-old girl wanting to be liked and belong, okay, go into modeling. So music went to a second place, and it was kind of put on the side, unfortunately, looking back. But I did not continue playing, or studying formally music. I do have classmates, and we still are in touch, that pursue that. We still are in touch with some of the teachers, they're all over the world. They went to other countries and found their orchestras and continue their studies and playing. But I guess that wasn't my call.
So you were growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and what was your life like as you were becoming a teenager, young woman? What were your thoughts about the future?
Being an only child, I was kind of guided to being somewhere. I went to a technical school. That means it was, if you go to that school, pretty much you're set on a pathway to go to STEM careers, engineering, technology, and all that. I guess now, as a parent and an adult, I see that math and science were easy for me, and I think it's because of my education in music. So math, I love math. Okay, I don't understand how people hate math. For me, it's easy, and I did not grow up with a fear of math. So being in a technical school was also easy, but this technical school, it was a little bit, it was funded in a way to be, I think it was funded for this. We were next to a university where teachers on social careers were taught. So my school was the ground for them to practice. So our system was like a semester, which was nothing like the rest of the schools. We studied in semesters, so each semester we had some practicing teachers from the university next door. It was a very socialist university. It was, of course, teachers are associated with unions and the workers' rights and all those. So our education was very forward thinking. We were formed to be critical thinkers. We were given these opportunities of always question what we were learning and discover and do projects. So I think it was a privilege also to be in that school, because not everybody is taught to think and to dissect everything you're put in your life or find ways to improve critically. So it was there. Of course, we went to the whole high school. It was over there. You don't go middle school and then high school in a separate way. It's just the whole from 7th grade all the way to 12th grade. So we were the same group, okay? Because once you go into school, you're there. You can go out, you can leave, but no new students can come in because it's a pathway. So it progresses. So we still are friends. That's where I made, my best friends from childhood in some way. Going through puberty together, discovering life, thinking, and then going separate ways. Most of it, I would say 90% of us went to the university and studied engineering, physics, biology. Many went to medicine, but most of us were to engineering.
Is that what you did?
I went to engineering, yes. I went to study industrial engineering, and that did not go well. I love technical drawing, math, like I said, but I wasn't really into. I wasn't sure what an industrial engineer will be. I guess I was just following everybody else because I was in the pathway to go there. And then at 18, that's when I had my rebellious time as a teenager. I was a little late. And I was giving a hard time to my mom. That's when I remember, yes, it was a hard time that I gave her. I wasn't really attending school. So she told me really clearly, you live here, you either go to school, you get a job. So I got a job. I got a job at a bank. In the newly formed, it was like a new thing, marketing department. Okay? And we were, 3 of us, we were like young students, college students. And we had, our director was from Nicaragua, and he was very aware of marketing and promotions. So the bank was a national bank, and they have offices everywhere in the country. So our job was to go like to shows, trade shows, and have a booth and promote the bank services. And we started getting training on outreach and promotions and marketing. And I liked it. So I quit industrial engineering. And then I went to a private college that was starting doing marketing classes. So that's where I joined. And I joined to have like an associate on marketing and sales. And that's where I discovered that I did like marketing. What I did like about marketing, it was the area of strategic thinking and consumer behavior and why people do things. And how, of course, marketing, you want to sell. So in a way, the marketers use techniques to make people behave in certain ways or like their products because of what they do. So that's how I started that career.
And so you were about to enter into a marketing career.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened?
Then I went to another bank, the same department. I was traveling. I travel all over the country, all over Honduras, to the poorest areas where the bank had offices. So I met a lot of people from all kinds of backgrounds, and it opened my eyes on seeing people, the struggles, but at the same time the resiliency and humility of people, and also, of course, when you're in a bank, you interact with all kinds of people at all levels. So from the most affluent to the poorest. Okay, and I always made sure that no matter how you looked, how you were dressed, you were treated with respect. Because you never know who can come with a little bag, raggedy bag, full of money, you know, and the person with a suit may have an empty pocket. So it's not about how you look, how you present yourself. So there were some lessons, you know. I could hear stories from cashiers, tellers in the bank about those specific things. Seeing customers coming, you know, very poor farmers, you would think, because the way they look, and had a bag full of cash. And here you go, I want to deposit it. They don't ask for nothing. They don't want a loan. They don't want nothing. They want to save money. Here you go. And then having another person, you know, in a suit, well presented, clean. It's like, I'm broke, I need a loan, or something like that.
Did you ever have any thought at that point that you might leave Honduras?
Never. I did not want to leave. I remember not wanting to leave. When I was giving a hard time to my mom, that was a time when she got laid off after 20 years working. So for an older person that was being a secretary, there was very limited opportunities. She wasn't not only working there, but I remember she working at home, typing in a typewriter until the very late hours, doing work on the side to make ends meet while I was sleeping. So I looking back now, I see her sacrifice. But when you're a child, you are ignorant. And you don't see that, you know, you don't see the reach of your parents' sacrifice. So when I was giving her a very hard time, she, I don't even know how, she came up with the idea of coming to the States for a better life. In a way, I think being me being rebellious and not wanting to do what she asked me, or wanting to live my life by myself or like I wanted, kind of pushed her to immigrate. So she came here, and she stayed after her visa expired. So I did not want to leave to Honduras. after I had my career. I worked in banks. I was happy. I had a career success. I didn't see the need to leave. She left because she had a need in some way, economic, and there were limited opportunities for her. So
What kind of work did she do here?
she started cleaning houses. Most of the time, most of the years, that's what she did. Clean houses and take care of a family, being a nanny, and sometimes she did live in the house with the family, and so it was practically a maid. And she will send me money, stuff, clothes. I did not know the sacrifice that it took for her to send me the stuff. I remember, sadly, what I did, because me and her have different taste in clothes. She will pick things for me that I did not like flowery blouses, certain colors that I did not wear. So I remember getting a box or somebody will bring a package from her with clothes that I didn't like when I saw. So I didn't value it. I will sometimes give it away or keep it in the closet and never wear it. That now, but I didn't want to tell her I don't like it. I didn't want to offend her, but at the same time, I didn't value it either.
Was she learning English when she was here? And did you speak English at that time?
I spoke French. Because of my education, I was involved with a very special crowd of people, musicians, artists. I even dab a little bit into theater. So it was that crowd of bohemian people. It was cool in some way. But I always liked languages. I remember when we were at school, the Japanese mission also taught Japanese courses. So I just signed up and went ahead and took 2 months. I did not pursue it, but I remember I liked it. And so later I joined the French Alliance Française, which it's an office from the French. I guess they have these offices to build relationship with the communities where they are. So they did offer classes for French. So here I am. I signed up. I was in an intensive course for a whole year, 3 times a week. So I learned French, which I forgot already. But that was another thing. I have this, I guess, gift. Languages are also easy for me. So I also, after, not with the intention of coming here or to the States, but I did take a couple of English courses. It was okay. They were just simple. You don't learn a lot when you're not immersed. So I learned, yes, my name is so-and-so. That's what you learn. You learn a little bit of vocabulary. But once a week, 1 hour, what do you remember? And not traveling or not having friends who speak English to you. I didn't really picked a lot of the English, and I didn't think I needed it, honestly. So it just was something like I didn't really continue. But what I did do was the French.
What were the circumstances that led up to your coming to the United States?
Like I said, I never wanted to leave Honduras. And if I ever thought about leaving, the last country that I wanted to go to, it was the United States.
The last.
The last.
Why do you say that?
Like I said, I studied in a socialist school where we were taught about imperialism and U.S. policies to maintain third world countries in poverty and interferences on economies and keeping Latin American countries under the dark, having military bases in our countries to maintain the status quo on the benefit, economically, politically, and all of those things. So I literally kind of hated this country. You know, I was taught this way. So I didn't want to come here. And I didn't want to marry a military person. So we have a saying, don't speed up, you know, because it will come back and get you. And that's what I did. I speed up. Because, you know, by a group of friends, and it's things, you know, when you look back and you see how life takes you, do you think are coincidences or what? I don't know. But things happen for a reason. And for me to consider living in Honduras, it took to meet my husband. He was a soldier, an army soldier. The States has a military base in Honduras. It's called Sotocano, Palmerola. Okay? Sotocano is the name of the officer, or I don't even know who was. They name it after him. So he was, I understand now that I actually met other people before him that was stationed in Honduras. I think it was the group of friends that I had at the time. It was they had friends already with military people, so it just happened that we just started in the same groups. So I met other soldiers before my husband that were stationed in Honduras. Most of them were Puerto Ricans because the language. Okay, to do a job that we're assigned to do in Honduras, they needed to speak the language. And even though Puerto Ricans speak a little bit of different Spanish than us, they could, you know, understand in some way what was going on around them. So I think I met 2 or 3 soldiers in that position before my husband was assigned. So they would come for 6 months. That was their tour, and they would leave, and then another person came. So by the time I met my husband, it was actually at a friend's house. I was no longer living in the capital where we met. I was living in the second biggest city in Honduras, which is San Pedro Sula. I moved there 2 years before that time. I started from zero. Unfortunately, don't put this, but just it's just a background. Running away from a bad boyfriend. But I moved to San Pedro, and I got a job there. I just started from zero, not knowing anybody. So I was used to being alone. I was an only child. So it was an opportunity that I took, and I just ran with it. And actually, while I was there, I discovered the other area that I like, which is public affairs, public relations. I moved from the job that I took to work for an advertising agency. So I was an account executive. They call it, you're the liaison between the customer and the agency. So I did that, and I have several accounts on my responsibility, and some of them were international accounts, and it was fun. It was fun understanding the strategies of global marketing and things like that. But I would still travel once a month to Tegucigalpa, which is the capital, to see friends, to see my family. And I will stay with I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have where to live. So I will stay one time with my aunt. I will stay another time with a friend or my other aunt or somebody else. So one of those times that I went to this gathering at my friend's house, and I met my husband. And he had a girlfriend. We did not click at all, honestly. We met. He was, of course, with a lady, his girlfriend at that time, and I was just there visiting, having fun. And I remember my friend had a piano in her house, and there was a big group, and she asked me to play something, and I said, really? I had stopped playing for a while. So I said, well, I can try. And there they are all gathered around, and I play something. So that was it. We stopped, the gathering, finished, and we didn't see each other again. Until a few months later, again, I went back to the place I was living, and then it was a few months after that I again was visiting my friend. She actually was the owner of a bar kind of restaurant place, so I was hanging out with friends there, and my friends left me. And I said, I do not want to go home. It was like 11:30 at night. I'm like, I do not come from far away just to go and be at home. So they left me, and I stayed. And my husband was there at the time by himself. So we were dancing, we were having fun all night, and that's how our relationship started. It wasn't really planned, because I don't think I was looking. No, I don't think so. I wasn't looking for a relationship, a serious relationship. It was just a day of dancing and having fun, and then I knew I wasn't living at the same city. It was just not a right combination. So he wasn't, he was going to leave, typically of soldiers. They stay for a while and they leave. And they did not have a good reputation, or they still do not have a good reputation, I think, American soldiers, everywhere they go. So it wasn't really an intentional at all. So I went back to where I was, working and living, and things happen. We started every month that I would come to town, we will go out. And that led to, one thing led to another. I actually got pregnant with my son. And I wasn't going to tell him, And I remember my mom is a single mom. And my biggest fear and my biggest regret for that, it was hurting my mom, doing something that she thought it was repeating her story. But at the same time, there were very different circumstances. I was a professional. I had a good life. And it wasn't the same circumstances that she had. But something, and my father didn't want me, okay? So I was debating if to tell him that I was pregnant or not. And I don't know if I came up with it or a friend or somebody told me, but at the end, the reason why I told him, it wasn't because I wanted to be with him or I wanted to get married. I actually didn't want to get married. The reason why I told him, it was to give my son an opportunity to have a father. And I wasn't going to be the one saying yes or no. It was going to be him. So my job was to allow that opportunity to happen. But it was nerve-wracking, of course. Who wants to be rejected? And after being a child with a single mom, I know what would be my child's life in some way. Not maybe the same, but I know what it is to grow up without a father. So after days of thinking, I reached out to him and I told him, I am coming to town this weekend, let's chat. And still, he didn't know. But when I told him, the first thing I told him, of course, that I was pregnant. And the second thing I told him is, I do not want to get married. Okay? And the third thing I told him is, the only reason I'm telling you this is to give our child or this child an opportunity to have a father in his life or her life. That's all. Of course, my heart was pounding and I don't remember a lot of the details because it's a blur. But I do remember the first thing he said is, do not worry. Okay? We're adults. We did this together. And we're gonna get through this together. That is a man of honor there. After having that image of soldiers impregnated women and living, for this man to have this bucket of cold water thrown at him and saying, do not worry. And of course, we don't have to get married. I'm like, please, I don't, you don't have to tell me that. But in reassuring this, that his participation on this child's life, that still is it's something that I will never forget, you know, because of the way that tells you about the quality of a person he is and his honor. That's the way he was raised by his grandfather. So, yes, it was a relief, but at the same time, it was, now how do we go about this? Okay? So, he fortunately, he was extended for another 6 months. So he was able to stay with me throughout the pregnancy. And he made sure he was in the country when our son was born. And he left the week after. I know in my heart, if he would have been there when our son was born, we wouldn't be together. Because of course a mother feels their child with inside our bodies, you know, we feel the growth but for a father to connect with their son or child, it's a visual thing. So if I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but being at the moment when he was born, it changed his life. So he left, and it was a very difficult moment. We didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones. I didn't even have a phone in my apartment. So communicating, it was very difficult after he left. And there were all kinds of things about how am I gonna send you money to help you? I'm like, I don't know, we will figure it out. I don't need your money, you know, in some way like that. But let's plan on like, okay, are you gonna come and visit or not? Or like, I don't know. You know, it was going to be something that we will have to work it out. But he definitely wanted to be part of our son's family life. So the one thing he did before he left, he went to the consulate and did an affidavit of to assuming paternity of the child. So my son had his birth certificate as an American born abroad. With that, you know, I remember afterwards, you know, he tells me stories that his friends, other soldiers, will tell him, why are you doing that? Once you leave, she can't find you. There's no way you can, you know, she can find you and get money, or you don't have to do this for her or for the child. But he chose the honorable road. So for that, you know, I think it doesn't matter if we got married or not, but the decision to be part of our son's life is what definitely changed my perspective on men in general, because I had a very bad image of men in general because of my father leaving, but with his behavior, you know, he chose and he proved to me that not all men are equal in some way.
So you have a son who's an American citizen.
Mm-hmm.
You have a mother who's living in the United States. did you think maybe I need to go to the U.S.?
No.
Still no.
No, I didn't. I actually thought that I was going to raise my son, by myself. And yeah, maybe bringing him to visit his father. His father will come on vacation and visit us. And through communication in some way, phone, pictures. I remember taking a ton of pictures and sending it to him. Will probably the first years will be more difficult, but when our son will grow, it will be easier. He probably will travel by himself and visit his dad or in the summer, or they were all these kinds of things, possibilities. I honestly did not think that the only way was for me to come in here. That was a possibility, but it wasn't my choice, my first choice still, okay? I don't know, it was like, I didn't want to do it just for my son, because if I wasn't happy, then what kind of life I was going to give him?
Okay, so how did you get here?
Well, and in all this time, we had a pact that we were not gonna get married, okay? And we respected it. We became very good, close friends. It was weird. We became the best friends, having a child together. But I think it's because we knew that he was leaving and I was staying, that we didn't want to say what actually was going on, how we built that relationship. None of us wanted to give up on our promise. So when he left, it was like 3 months after. I went back to work. I started my life, my routine, My son was at home and I was at work. I had a person who was watching him. And one day he calls me at work and tells me that he misses us, that he definitely cannot see his life moving forward without being with us. And like, why don't you move here? I'm like, what do you mean by that? I am not just gonna move and live my life here. I remember it was funny because one of the conversations like, okay, well, maybe not now, but when we were talking about how it's gonna be life, one day I'm gonna meet somebody and probably married and you can still visit your child and things like that, those type of conversations. That did not go well. And I'm like, okay, he started telling me, no, okay, if somebody is going to come to the house, I need to know who it is, who's going to be next to my child, who's going to be, living in the same house. I need to know what kind of person they are. And I'm like, oh, wait, no. Okay, you're not going to control my life in some way as a woman, I've always been a strong woman and independent. So I'm like, the line is, you can have a saying about your son, our son, but you cannot have a saying about my life. So that was part of the challenging of him. I now I see, the perspective of, in a way, having somebody replace him. So when he left, there were a few months, and like I said, life went back to normal in some way, with the new normal with a child for me. And he, we will communicate, and I will update him now. David he's doing this, he's doing that, or this is their pictures, and but he will really feel the emptiness. You know, my life was full and busy. I had the child. For him, we were not together. We were really far away. So when he calls me and tells me, look, I really think this is not going to work this way. Why don't you come here? I'm like, well, that's not that easy. Like, what do you mean just come here? No. You know, why don't you marry me? I say, oh, are you telling me because you want your child there? And then like, no. Okay. So I wasn't expecting that question because of our agreement. Okay. So it took me by surprise. And I didn't know if I really wanted to leave my country, my life, to start from zero. So I thought about it. But being my mom here and being an only child, I thought, what are my choices? Like, here is this opportunity with this man that we have developed this relationship in a very strange way, but we had. And then there's this child. And then the other side is you stay here and then what? So I thought it was in some way an opportunity not just for my son, but for me also to start a family. So I say yes, without knowing what I was coming to. But it was difficult. It was difficult to leave everything. I remember it was very quick. It was like a month after, I say yes, we're gonna marry it and I'm gonna move. It was probably a month that I quit my job. I sold everything. And December 20th, 1996, I was in the airport. My whole family was there saying farewell. My grandma, my aunts, uncles, cousins. It was a big group of people. I had my son in a car seat in 2 suitcases. That's all I brought. So, when people you go to houses and you see pictures of their childhood and all that, I don't have those because I didn't have space. It was 2 suitcases. So I had to get rid of all the memories. Well, they're in my mind, but nothing to show my kids now. And it was winter when we came here. I remember not knowing, my mom was living in Miami. So we landed in Miami. She was, of course, the happiest to see us. To have her grandchild. We spent Christmas and New Year's with her. And in January, we went to Washington State in winter. I had never seen snow. And we get there, it was gray and dark. But it was everything was new. Everything, like, he was waiting for us, and it was it was strange because it's like you're being taken, like it's not you. Like you're taken to this, everything changes so quickly. Then you learn that you live in an apartment, isolation. There's no community. There's not family around. To see a friend, you have to drive, get in the car and drive like 30 minutes. You don't. There's no like neighbors talking to neighbors or something. It was so different. Yes, his friends, of course, military related, and they were very welcoming. But it was all new. I did not speak English. So, yeah, it was only my relationship to the world was through my husband.
So talk a little bit about that, how you have to learn English, you have to find work, you have to find yourself here in this new place.
Yes.
What was that like?
Find myself. That's a good question because I felt I lost myself. Like I left myself in Honduras. I was nobody here. My career didn't mean anything because I did not speak the language. I couldn't even work here because I came here with a visa to marry my husband, a fiancé visa in a way. So we get married, and that means 6 months to wait for a temporary residence. Well, that happens. You can't work. You can't do anything because you don't have a social security number. And you're a total dependent. That's the meaning of the word. Dependent is you cannot do anything on your own unless somebody else does it for you. So I will stay at home. I couldn't go to class or English class. My husband, he only had one car. I wasn't able to drive. So I will stay at home, take care of our baby, and, just stay at home mom. Very, very depressing. It was a hard culture shock. Isolation. Alone, but in a world that it's not the same being alone when you move out of your parents' house, but you're still in your country, you're still in your neighborhood in some way with friends. And that's my daughter. When I came here, it was a loneliness that I had never experienced because I couldn't just take a bus or a car and go visit a friend or a relative if I felt alone. I couldn't see anybody. They were like thousands of miles away. So to feel that connection, it wasn't there. Let's wait.
Mm-hmm.
Honey?
Yes.
You're leaving?
Yes.
Who's el dinero?
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking for my purse.
It's here.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
It's
No,
okay.
we're
okay.
paused. We're
They're in
paused.
pause.
Yeah.
What about this one?
I can't bring him with me.
I know. I'll just take him upstairs again. Bernard, come here.
He's just gonna lay down.
Such a cute dog.
Yeah. He's gonna be a therapy dog.
Ah. Fluffy dog.
Yeah, he's been really good so far. He's showing a lot of good behavior traits. Like he's okay being like touched and held and stuff.
Yeah.
He's a really good cuddle bug.
Yeah.
Cuddlebug, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
gonna be a really good therapy dog.
Yeah.
I will be back.
Okay, just go and then I'll take him. Let's go see Grandma. Mama. Mama.
2:30 Yeah, excellent. Oh.
It's dog world.
Hey, buddy. Hey. All right, go. Go.
Oh God. Coco.
Having a drink.
Come, let's go upstairs. No.
Go.
I can't help you.
Coco.
There's nothing I can do.
She hears the car, that's why. Coco, come on. She just debajo de la mesa. Come, Coco. Come, let's go. Let's go. Come here. You want a snack? Yes? Let's ride her.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta go upstairs. Not here. Upstairs. Yeah. Upstairs. Come on. Come on here. Come on. Come on. Come here. Come here. You want a snack? Come here. No. Come here. Come here. Come here. She knows. Come here. Okay. No, I guess it's in there too.
Oh.
There you go, there you go,
Oh, my
there you go.
God. She's coming. She's coming.
Upstairs, come on.
Ah.
No.
No. You're trying to get me to go upstairs.
Okay. Come here.
Alright.
We'll see if she sits here. Come here. You stay here, okay?
That is
Sit.
funny.
Sit. You sit here. Sit. Sit. Lay. Lay here. Lay. 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 Good girl. You stay there, okay?
We'll see.
Children.
Yeah. Alright. So,
Well, so we were just talking about, finding yourself and the loneliness and working through that. But you did.
Yes.
And so how did you learn English and how did you develop work of your own? And talk a little bit about that.
I learned, I think even after taking classes in Honduras, something must have stayed in my mind because my husband was very strict and we did not watch TV in Spanish. Wait. Sit. Sit there. Sit there. Sit. Sit. You can stay here if you lay. Lay. Good girl. You stay here, okay?
Did not watch TV in Spanish.
No. We'll watch TV with captions, okay, in English. And we will watch stand-up comedy and all programs at night with captions. And I was next to my husband laughing out loud because we were watching comedy, and I was like, what did he say? Okay. And then he will tell me, oh, he said this, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What is it funny about it? And slowly I can understand reading, okay? Reading the captions, I will understand, but I didn't understand what was it funny about, you know? It was the culture, okay? Not just only you need to learn a language, but the culture. You know, people ask me the Brady Bunch. I'm like, what about it? I know about them, but that's not a show that I grew up watching, or we grew up in Latin America watching. Sesame Street. All the names of the characters. I did not know. You know, we grew up like Plaza Sésamo, Rosita, Abelardo. You know, those are the names of your late childhood. It's the programs you watch, the cartoons, but they were in Spanish. The train.
Because we're through the backyard, huh?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
No, it's not.
My wife grew up with something very similar to this, and to this day, the sound of trains comforts her.
Yeah.
And she really liked it.
There are very specific times that the train passes. And sometimes in the winter, they stop right here to switch shift. And it's like, why? I have called CSX and asked them, why do you have to do it behind my house? They don't have an answer. So watching TV, that's how I, learn. But yes, you learn to understand it a little bit, get the accent a little bit, but speaking is a different thing. So my husband, we will go for, let's say, to the pharmacy or to the store, and he will tell me, gosh, you're annoying. Coco. That's not a good sound.
Come on, go.
Coco, thank you for spilling all the water. You, sit. Can you come back? Sit. Sit right there. Sit. You want to go out? No. Sit and lay. Lay, vamos, lay. Good girl. We will go to the store, and he will stay in the car with our son and tell me, go inside and ask for this. I was horrible. It was torture. Okay, he will tell me this, say it, and I was like, okay, how do you say it? I say, okay. He will tell me, I will repeat it, and then I was like, are you sure I have to go? Yes. He will force me, and he will send me out, and I will go out all timid and my horrible accent and not knowing if I was saying it the right way, and in some way or another lose the fear. But it was terrifying, and especially when you encounter people with different accents that some I do not understand. I learned these key phrases. I do not understand. Please repeat. one moment and I would go and ask my husband something different, like they're saying this and that, what do I say? And I will go back and he'll say, go back. He pushed me. He didn't make it easy because in a way he knew that being a military person, he may be sent away from us, and what was going to happen to us if I wasn't able to communicate. He knew it was his responsibility to teach me to be in this country and learn. So I learned.
How about work?
Work. The only way I could work here in my career wasn't, my studies were not valid here. So I decided while we were stationed in the Netherlands that's when online school started. So I was like, wow, I could have gone to the university at base, but who was gonna watch our son? How I was gonna go there? I didn't drive and all these things. So when online schools started going around, then I said, this is my opportunity. I couldn't work still, so I decided on going to school. By that time, we had already our daughter. So with 2 little kids, with limited English, I started studying. And again, because I like marketing, I chose a bachelor in business and marketing. They did recognize some of my college credits, but many of them were not. But it was a little bit recognition. So that not just helped me get a degree here, my education, but I also learned English, okay, in a professional way. I learned to write. I learned to speak professionally. I remember online education pretty much is a lot to do about essays writing. That's the way you prove you're learning in some way. So we had a weekly paper, individual, and I think it was every other week it was a team paper that we had to do research. So I had my Spanish and English dictionary in my workstation in the computer at home. I had my Spanish English dictionary, my thesaurus dictionary, and then all of the spelling and that in words and the words resources. Because at that time, even though I was a little bit fluent, proficient in English, I was still thinking in Spanish. So when you had to write a paper, I was thinking it in Spanish. Then I was translating it into English. And a 1,000 words paper will take me 3 days to write because of that process. And I did not want my husband's help. Okay? So let's say I had an idea. And I said, well, I want to say this. I will tell him, I want to say this. And then I wrote this in English. Does this mean what I want to say? And he will read it and he will tell me no. Or he will tell me, change the order, punctuation, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, go back and I will fix it. And then he will proofread. And then I will take his corrections and go back and fix it. Until he will tell me, yes, it makes sense, in some way. Or it means what you're meant to say. that's how I learn. Because I didn't want him to help me because, you know, every person's language, you have your own vocabulary, your way of saying things. So I didn't want to use his words. They were my words, my ideas. I wanted to be able to write my ideas, not him putting his ideas on my paper. So I told him, I just need you to review and tell me if I'm doing it right or wrong. And slowly, in 4 years, I finished my bachelor. And by the time I finish, I would do a paper in 3-4 hours. I don't remember when was the moment that somebody asked me, what language do you think in? Yeah, I don't pay attention anymore. It comes out. Depends if I'm having a conversation in English or in Spanish. That's what it just comes out. Do you think before you speak? No, it just comes out. Well, it's the same. But when you're learning a language, you think before you speak because you translate it in your head. The words. You're switching code is what it is called. So I don't remember exactly what the moment that I started not consciously doing that. One day just, wow, came out without me thinking about it. That's when you become fluent, I think. Still, when I get too comfortable, it's funny because when I get too comfortable or somebody that we become really close and we're having this very animated conversation, words come out in Spanish. Just, it's unconscious, you know, like the emotions, the pains, you know, they just come out. But it's because of the closeness, I think, of friendships or conversations. So right now, I think now I understand culture. So I am bicultural and bilingual in fully. I have assimilated in many ways because we have here, I've been here for more than 22 years. And I have learned the culture through my children going to school, living their lives, understanding a little bit of what's growing up being a child in this culture here means. But it's always learning still. They're still young, so there are things that I'm learning through them and through other people that I encounter in life.
I want to switch just a little bit because you said that when you got here, came to the military base with your husband, that everybody was welcoming. But then when we talked before the interview, you said that there was a time which was your first experience of racism.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the negative side a little bit and if there are times when it's been hard and you haven't felt accepted here?
Being a military family had allowed me to experience a subculture in this country. There is camaraderie and unity within the armed forces or all military people and families because we share the life of a military family. There is this lingo, there's a way of living, there's terms that you are familiar, unless you're a military family, you don't know about it. So being in this close community showed me the good side of sharing with different people from all backgrounds. When you're military, there are people of all upbringings in all parts of the country and even the world that have become, U.S. citizens or they have served in the military. And traveling also gives us this opportunity of seeing other cultures. So we are able to interact, and our children are able to see other countries and other people. And that also comes with separation of families, times without your husband or your spouse. Being overseas, that culture strengthens, in some way. It gets tighter because you're away from your country. Well, I'm always away, but everybody is away in some way. So you become closer. But when you are here in the States, in a military base, your life not only evolves around the base. You are in your country, you live in a neighborhood, you have probably family, friends out of the military base. So the life is different. We were stationed in North Carolina. It was the first time really that I experienced being stationed in a military base. But we were living in the economy, what we say, in the neighborhood, in the community. And again, my husband will go to work. I will stay at home with the children. At that time, my daughter was still a baby. And I will take walks around the neighborhood. There was a small shopping center nearby the house. And it just to go out and walk, be out of the house, and just walk around the shopping center and go into a store, just not really shopping, but just to get your mind out of the routine. And I was just looking in a rack through the clothes, and I felt this, somebody looking at me with the most disdain that I have seen in somebody's eyes. And I actually, at the moment, I look past me like, who is that person looking at that way? Because I thought that this person, it was an older lady, that this person probably was upset by something. I just came up with I wasn't sure what was going on. So I looked back thinking, who is this lady looking at that way? Maybe somebody did something to her. And then I realized that nobody was around me, that she was looking at me that way. And that felt horrible because I was like, what have I done to her? For her to see me that way. She didn't know me. She was just looking at me, the way I look, my appearance, my physical appearance. And I guess she had assumed that I was a certain way or not. That was the first time, and I think that's the reason why I still remember it today. And that impacted me the most, because I never felt that I was. It was like that sensation that you are dirty in some way, that you are bad, or that you're in the wrong place. You don't belong here. And I think, I don't even remember, I think I left. I left the store because she continually was looking at me, staring at me that way. But I didn't know, I remember at that time I didn't speak well English. So I couldn't say anything. It was an older person. She deserves respect. So I just left, I think. But I have not had any experience like that again. Maybe, and that's one of the reasons I ensure that I learn the language and I learn to defend myself and speak out, because and honestly, I don't look like the typical Hispanic. Sometimes they tell me people do not associate me sometimes with the Hispanic countries, even though I look like Hispanic, because we are very diverse in our countries. But people associate me with, either they say if I'm Italian, from Spain, other countries but Latin America, or specifically Honduras, at least. So in a way, I feel that I have been privileged of not looking the stereotypical way that in general people assumes, the Hispanic woman. And until I open my mouth and they hear my accent. But also, I do not allow, after that, I think after that experience, I just decided I was not going to allow anybody to make me feel a certain way, or that I didn't belong. I don't think I had to be publicizing through the world that, what I have done to be here. I contribute to this country. I work, pay my taxes. My husband is a veteran. He served for 22 years, and we have been with him through that service. But I don't think I need to say that to deserve to be here. Nobody. Because we all come here through different circumstances, and as long as I contribute to the society, the community, I become part of it, and I do my share, why not? None of us belong here in the first, except for Native Americans. So we're all foreigners. If you really look at it, we are the colonizers displaced the Native Americans from all America, starting here all the way down to Latin America. It's the same thing. So I think living with honor and helping your community and being a good citizen, and that's what matters.
You talked about contributing, and so would you talk about the work you do today and what that means to you?
I work for the city of Richmond in the Office of Multicultural Affairs. It's I've been there just a year and a half, but before this job, I enter public service in a way, working in the government, in a state agency. Once I finished my bachelor in business and marketing, I was like, oh yeah, now I can work. And I looked for a job, and like it happens here, you're just everywhere. You just don't get a job in what you do. You have to get your foot in the door first. So my foot in the door was, I started as an administrative assistant for the Department of Emergency Management and Public Affairs. So the department's mission is pretty much it has a component of education about emergency preparedness at that moment. I had no clue what the Department of Emergency Management was at that time. I just needed a job. And I said, well, it's okay. Let's start here. And the first week that I was there, my boss comes and tells me, we have a reporter that speaks Spanish that wants an interview in Spanish about hurricane preparedness. It was almost the beginning of hurricane season. And my boss said, would you be okay on doing this interview? It was a radio interview. Will you be okay doing this interview if we tell you, we give you the information and we prepare you? I'm like, I was shaking. I was like, I don't even know what we do here. But I was like, okay, I'll do it. So after studying the material, we get to the appointment. The person was gonna call the reporter, and my boss was sitting next to me just in case I needed his help. And it was very casual. Radio is very friendly because you're not on camera. People don't see you nervousness in some way. So we did the interview, and it was just like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, very short, but I liked it. And what I liked about it is that I saw also the need of sharing this information in Spanish, because no other agency or person was teaching our community, the Latino community, about the risk of disasters and how to be prepared. We come here, and in our countries, we don't experience snow, blizzards, tornadoes. Yes, we have floodings, rain, droughts, things like that. Pretty much is heat or rain. But here we have 4 seasons. What are the risks? There's a bunch of added disasters that can occur that we are not aware when we come from other countries. So I thanked my boss for the opportunity, and he said, well, now if you are interested, you can continue. So that's how I started doing outreach to the Hispanic community about emergency preparedness. And I will be unofficially the liaison for the Hispanic community. And slowly, I will just, when a disaster happens, I will share information. I will translate it in Spanish and share it with the media, the local media, and share it with people. And it just became my path, my call. I discovered that I could help, because I guess in a way now I knew how did I get there? Through education. Okay, in a way forced by the circumstances, by my husband just pushing me, by me pushing myself, but also because I was pushed by all the forces. I was in that place. So now I could share that information, because education and knowledge is power. Immigrant communities live in some way isolated. It's like a bubble of safety. We build communities around who we know, our friends, our relatives, and that becomes this small world. And religion is kind of the same to a military base. Okay, so you don't leave the bubble, then you're just there. But there is life around, there are opportunities, and also there are threats that if you're not aware and educated, then you can be a victim of bad things. So I think I was in a position to help and share what I was learning with this community. So slowly I branched out and translated more information and purposely reach out to people and channels and groups to teach and share more this information. So when I come to the city, now the city has this dedicated office, not just for the Hispanic community, but for other immigrants communities who are new to the city. And the office serves as a hub of resources. Because of course the city can only offer what the city offers, but there are a bunch of other organizations around in the community that provide services that are accessible to the community, and they need to know about it. And in some way, that's our mission, to bring or to help break those barriers, culturally and language barriers, for the residents to access services. But it is sometimes one-on-one, because if you don't have that need now, you may not pay attention. So it is an ongoing mission. We had a saying in the Department of Emergency Management: unless you see the imminent danger, that's why people run to the stores and buy milk and bread the morning before a disaster or a snowstorm, because unless you see it coming, we don't act. It is human behavior. So it is the same in mostly all the areas. If you don't have that immediate need, you're not going to look for the information. So we're constantly balancing the education and the resources that we provide, not just to the Hispanic community, but we're reaching out to other immigrant communities too.
Well, I want to ask you to sort of think about the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that young girl studying piano, and thinking about Karla today working with the Office of Multicultural Affairs, the whole arc of your story. And what stands out for you as being really important, like the values, I guess is what I'm looking at,
Mm-hmm.
the qualities, the things that people that you personally and that other people you know who have immigrated to this country need in themselves to succeed, things they have to deal with. Just talk about that whole experience of immigration, coming from one place to another, leaving oneself behind, creating another.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
We're almost done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry to take up your whole kitchen here
It's
for
okay.
a long time.
Can you put that? Just leave it there.
Karla, is there a restroom on the floor?
The first door over
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
Right. I'm sweating.
Yeah, it's, even when you're speaking, you forget that you're dehydrated.
Yes. I don't know that. We need to take her away. Her clicking of the nails.
this is going great. Like we're getting some really good stuff. And
Okay.
It's a compelling story. So we're thank you. Like this is going really well.
I don't know. I feel like I'm rumbling all over the place.
You know what? We're not going to use everything.
I'm glad.
but the things that we will use are really kind of. It's good to have kind of a long form because we're not producing something for say like a television spot. We're collecting oral history, and oral histories tend to be longer form. They tend to feel rambly at the time, but the thing is, taken together, taken with the other ones we've done, and adding some time into it, and you come back to it after years, you value the rambling. I've gone back and listened to oral histories from the 40s and 50s, and the rambling stuff is the most interesting stuff. The stuff that seemed like an offshoot with time turns into something very interesting.
That's what it shows. The character, no?
Yeah, certainly. The details.
If she's not moving, it's okay.
Okay.
Hope you don't move, Coco.
So we're thinking about the whole arc of your story and what you needed to succeed and what do people need to succeed.
Looking back, and actually, she had to do that now.
That's okay.
No, because she put the gate on. Coco. Go. Go upstairs, go. Nanny, call her. Close the door. It has to be what she says.
That's okay.
I was saying, looking back, because I was kind of preparing for this conversation in some way, because you just leave, you don't, in some way you don't pay attention. Oh, where I'm coming, pathway. Maybe at least I am not that way. I do not plan. I didn't plan to be here. I think what I have been able to do is recognize opportunities, and run with them in some way. Take risk, okay? But at the same time, taking the risk because I think the way I was raised by a matriarchal family where women are strong and they keep the family moving. My grandma had 12 kids, okay? Yes, she was married, but my grandfather was always in the farm. My grandma was the one at home taking care of the children, moving, keeping the house running, having everything ready and done. My mom, also struggled, but she found opportunities to give me a better life. She wasn't just, this is all I can. No, she fought and did more than what she could in some way. And you just had to work through the challenges. That's what I have been taught. Being resilient, all immigrants in one way or another, we go through challenges that some are traumatic and in different levels. outrooting a person of what they belong, where they belong in a safe environment, or sometimes not that safe, but it's what you know. I think it's always a traumatic process. But I have made some conscious decisions, I think, of improving and educating myself and learning the culture. And when I say learning the culture, is learning how life functions here. Because if I live here and I'm going to teach my children to live here, or they're already here, this is their home, how can I teach them if I don't know it myself? So, but it hasn't been perfect in some ways, because I don't know it, or I didn't know it. My kids missed opportunities, school-wise, for example. For us in our countries, teachers take care of the children's education. We send them, we trust our teachers, and we send our children to school to be taught in the best way. And here it's different, because parents' involvement at school is crucial. But we don't learn that. So we had to learn that through trial and error, sometimes more errors than good things. But I think the key for being here is just keep pushing forward. And yes, the challenges that we encounter are ways to learn and just, learn the lessons of life.
Are there parts of your roots in Honduras that you want to hold on to and that you want your children to experience?
And on that same note, if you don't mind me jumping in, because I had a question to someone. You mentioned that you're bicultural.
Yes.
And I think this fits into this nicely. It's are you raising? Are your children bicultural, or what do you do to keep these parts that he's talking about of the Honduran culture and the Puerto Rican culture of your husband? How do you make sure that those men are around?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, talk to me.
Rick.
In some way, I think I don't feel that detached from Honduras because my mom lives with us. The way that I keep the culture from home is through food. There's special dishes that my grandma used to cook that my mom cooks. So we have lived, exposing my kids to, I can tell you that it's funny when several years ago when the kids were even, smaller, now they're young adults, that we will ask them, do you want to go eat out? Instead of asking for McDonald's or any of those fast food restaurants, they will ask for Latin American food, pupusas, enchiladas, going to a restaurant to eat those things instead of this food, or they will, throughout our trips in different stations in the military life, we learn to live in different countries, and the one thing we made sure it was for our kids to embrace and learn their cultures. And one of the ways is food. Food, music, and costumes, like Christmas, different Christmas traditions. And I will learn to cook as one dish from a different country or a friend that we met and share it with the kids. So keeping their culture, like one of the big things, like my husband is also Puerto Rican, so his culture is different. Even though we speak Spanish, not the same Spanish, but they have a very rich culture that my children said, okay, when you ask them, what are you? They say, like I say, what are you or where you're from? I'm Honduran, okay? My husband, he says he's Puerto Rican, and my kids says they are Honduran. Okay, they're a mix of Honduras and Puerto Rico. But they are Americans too. And the way we keep depends, we just don't deliberately say, okay, we'll do this like in Honduras or we do this like in Puerto Rico. We just live, and whatever comes out and feels good, that's what we do. Like in Christmas, my husband, in Puerto Rico, they do this parrandas, which is a very traditional celebration, and we all gather and sing the songs, their typical songs, and play the instruments, and the children participate. They are big in celebrating Three Kings Day, and when the kids were little, my husband would ask them to put a little shoebox outside their bedroom, so the Three Kings would leave a present, and they will ask to put some grass to feed the camels. That was the tradition for him when he was growing up, and we expose them in many ways, like in music, also different rhythms, and they know the different words, the dialect, in some way. They know what is the word for Spanish for this, for Honduran, and they know the word that in Puerto Rico you say it this way. So they have learned mainly through food and friends, the way, our gatherings are very diverse too.
Do you go back, or have you taken them back to Honduras?
I have not taken them back to Honduras. I have been back myself. But in some way it's the fear of the being unsafe there for them, because they don't speak fluently the Honduran way. So they will be noticed. They will attract some attention. And that's my fear, that they will be a target. They will act like tourists, and they will be spotted, and they will be a target for crime in some way. So I didn't want to take them, but at the same time, it's sad. They do not know their uncles, great uncles, their cousins. They did not experience life like I did with our extended family. For them, family is us and some of our closest friends through the military life. And it's okay. It's just what happened, what is available here. But that is one of the things we lose when we migrate. It's the connections to communities, to families, to roots.
I have one more question, and then we'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
That young woman back in Honduras, thought that the United States was the last place she ever wanted to live. Do you have a different feeling about it now? Has the United States been good to you?
It has been good to me, but I will say it in a different way. I will say that I have taken the good of it. Okay? Because there is a lot of bad that I have seen and that I continue seeing. The division, the racial discrimination, it's grown. The differences, the lack of access to services, the poverty. We don't have that image of the greatest country in the world from our countries. We think there is perfection here. We think we see this country as the hope for the best life. But when we come here, we see, when we are used to corruption in our countries, we see all this, and we believe that it doesn't happen here, that there's justice, okay? But I have seen injustice here, and I have seen corruption. But what I've also seen is that when the opportunity is there is correction of things. That things are corrected and the things are brought to justice. That I didn't see in my country. So that is the hope that this country gives me. That it can get fixed. It can be justice. After all.
That's a great place to stop. Thank you. Thank you. That was a great interview. Thank you.
That last thing,
Yeah.
what you just said, encapsulates something that we haven't heard before.
We haven't heard
in
that
all
before.
these interviews.
We haven't heard that before.
That was it. That
Yeah.
was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.